Let me begin again from the top.
Go ahead.
I have been in transition several times during my career. Each time I was very fortunate to have professional outplacement support. And this really made a difference in being able to be much more effective in managing my job search campaign. So the reason why I chose to talk about this particular presentation, cover letters and thank you letters, is through the years, I suppose that I have attended literally hundreds of networking meetings with presenters talking about LinkedIn and resumes and ATS systems, guidelines, and so on and so forth. I have never seen a presentation dedicated to this subject, never. So that was the reason why I wanted to do this. And I'm going to show you what I consider an underutilized cover letter and thank you letter, and then also a very, very strong, very effective thank you letter to show you exactly what I'm talking about the things that you should include to present yourself more strongly. Okay, slide 2. So this is the objective of the presentation. And this is, as I said a moment ago, what you should say to enhance your candidacy and set you apart from your competition. Slide 3. So this is a picture of your friendly recruiter or HR manager working in today's environment. HR has also been downsized, and people that work in HR today have many different responsibilities. And as a result, among them searching for the right candidates, they're working under pressure, working under strong deadlines. Excuse me. They have, and please note this, short attention span because they're looking at a lot of different documents. And they're looking for the very best match for every position. I think you know this, but I want to emphasize it because what you write and the impression that you make, writing is kind of indelible, right? When we talk, we can go back and change a sentence or say, this is what I really meant by that. But when you're writing, that's not the case. What you wrote is cast in stone. So it's very, very important that it be on the money for you. Slide 4. So let me ask some questions. And I just want you to think about this. I'm not looking for responses at the moment. By the way, when I finish the section on cover letters, we'll have a little intermission and you can use the chat box to share thoughts or ask me questions and I will answer them then. And we'll do the same thing at the end of thank you letters to try to keep this well organized. So as I talk to people, some write a cover letter, some don't believe in cover letters. And the real question is that you have to ask yourself is, by just sending a resume and not sending a cover letter, are you getting interviews? And I think it's generally known today, unless you are a super outstanding candidate and somebody in the company happens to know you and maybe you got really lucky and they called you and said, we know of you, we'd like to talk to you about this opportunity. If you just send in a resume and you don't send a cover letter with the kind of things I'm going to show you that should be in there, your statistical chances of getting contacted for an interview are very, very diminished. And this is especially true for those of you who are mid-career, you've worked in good companies, and you're applying for opportunities in top-notch companies, top fortune companies, whether even they're 100 or the top 500, because those are the ones, as you can imagine, get flooded the most with applicants. So the whole name of the game here that I advocate when I help people is getting yourself on top of the resume pile. Okay, next slide. All right, Same thing. This is, sorry. We're on slide 5 now. A cover letter can be a very, very important part of your marketing document, and it can be as important as your resume. What I see when I work with people is that most client cover letters are too long or too short. If they're too short, they may not have much of an impact, and if they're too long, we have the working at a fast pace recruiter or HR person or even a hiring manager. They can't be too long. They have to be very concise and short and to the point. And a lot of cover letters that I read that people write just say basically what's in the resume. So it really doesn't add anything. They don't provide information that enhances their candidacy. Okay, next slide. The first I want to talk about how to send cover letters. You can submit it online as a second document along with your resume. So if your resume is 2 pages long, submit your cover letter as the 3rd page. You can email it separately if you know who it's going to. And you also have the option of using snail mail, in which case you use a business letter format and you use quality stationery, and you can include the resume or you don't have to include the resume. I'm still a strong advocate of snail mail. And the reason is we do everything today in our electronic environment. And with all that's going on in there, it's easy for an email to be missed. That's not the case with a letter coming across somebody's desk in an envelope, is it? You don't get that much mail that way these days, and that is much more likely, I think, to be opened and to be read. Furthermore, yeah, maybe by analogy, I get birthday greetings by email, and that's fine. I appreciate that. But I appreciate much more a birthday card. I never miss opening a birthday card, and even though it's canned, it seems to have much more of a personal touch. And the personal touch, I think, is the advantage of snail mail over email. However, both work, and it's up to you to choose which one you want to do. Next slide. I'm going to show you a typical version of a cover letter, which in this case is not the one that I mailed to the HR manager, but I want to read the content to you to give you an idea of the kind of letters that I see when I first start working with people. And I'm addressing Judy, and I say, I just wanted to let you know that I've submitted my resume for the position of Director of Production Planning posted on Monster. As you review my experience and accomplishments, you'll see that I have many of the qualifications listed in the job description. I'm a supply chain management professional with many years of experience in the pharmaceutical and consumer products industry. Next slide. As you review my background, you'll see that some of my greatest accomplishments include capacity planning and priority planning, which dramatically improve service to customers. I'm very interested in speaking with you about this opportunity and look forward to meeting with you for a personal interview. So if you send something like this, this is better than just the resume because you are taking the time to make a personal contact to the HR person. However, this really doesn't say that much more than what was in my resume. So now I'll show you the actual cover letter that I did write, which I snail mailed to Judy Smith. And please look at this format. This is the business letter format. And since most people are not writing these today, I show this to you as a format that you should use when you want to write a letter and snail mail it. The date, your address, the person that you're addressing it to, the title, the company, et cetera, et cetera. And then the salutation, Dear Judy. Now, what I'm going to do in the next couple of slides is I have yellow highlighted those things that are different and in addition in this cover letter to what I was referring to as the typical cover letter. That will make it easy for you to recognize and for us to discuss what the difference is. So here's sending the personal note, letting them know of my interest in this position, and then I've submitted my resume. Here's what's different, and here's what's really important. To familiarize myself with the company, I took the opportunity to connect with some former employees. And I talk about Cassie and Jan, and that they spoke very highly of this educational company, specializing in helping students with visual learning disabilities to learn better by listening to textbooks recorded on CD. So I've done two things here. First of all, I networked into the company and I spoke with a couple of people who were super helpful in providing information about it. And the second thing is, I'm taking the opportunity to let them know that I know what the company does. Next slide, slide 11. In particular, Cassie shared it with me that the company is growing rapidly and that operations is challenged to supply thousands of books on CDs to needy students on time, and that both of them suggested that I contact you. There's the power of the networking. And you can be sure after Judy reads this letter, the next thing she's going to do is pick up the phone and talk to one or both of these people, because she's going to get some feedback on me. Then I go on to say about that I'm a supply chain management professional, and that's what I wrote in your basic letter. And then I say that I am seeking a second career. And the reason I chose the word second career is this is a completely different industry. This is not pharmaceutical, and this is not consumer products. So I'm indicating that this is okay for me because I can use my knowledge and experience from top-notch companies to make a special contribution to this organization. Next slide. And this is really the absolute personal touch. When they were children, both of my sons needed help with their reading skills to do better in school. As a parent of kids who are struggling, I appreciate the importance of the special educational assistance that they received. It would be particularly meaningful to me if my work enabled me to give something back by helping learning disabled students. Okay, so this is now, you're going to be thinking this is very situational. It so happens that I had kids that needed reading help. And you may not have this much of a personal touch with the business of a company. But even if you don't have this, if you do the other things that I outlined in the letter up to now, you're miles ahead of many other applicants. Concluding slide 13 on the actual letter. Based on what I understand thus far, I am very interested in this position and look forward to meeting with you and other members of the organization to explore this opportunity. Since I'm showing you something that's actual, you certainly want to know what the result was. I got a call within a day and a half of mailing this letter, and Judy wanted me to come right in to meet with the senior vice president and the associate vice president for an interview. That interview lasted about an hour and a half, and within a couple of days, I had an offer letter in the mail. And I think certainly, you want to be a good match background-wise for the job. But more than this, if you can communicate the personal interest in the company, why you're interested, what you know about the company, and that you've talked to some people in the company, I feel, and a lot of other career coaches tell me the same thing, you have more of a chance of getting an interview than somebody that didn't do that, that might be slightly better qualified for the job than you. That's the truth. This is part of the dynamics that you have to understand in applying for jobs. So here's a summary of your cover letter content: your date, your address, the person you're writing to, the salutation, and if you can, I know this is not always easy, never say "to whom it may concern," and try to get the name of the person. If you can't do that, the next best thing is the job title. Why are you writing this letter? That you have networked with employees in the company. Next slide. What do you know about the company? You can research their website, you can research companies in their industry, and out of that, you'll get some sense of what the challenges are. And when you speak to one or two people in the company, they will certainly tell you what the challenges are. Then you summarize your background and how it meets the requirements of the position, and why you're especially interested in the position. And you make this compelling. You're writing in first person singular here. This is not resume language. And you need to show a lot of professional interest and enthusiasm as much as you can. And when you have a closure and you write it, and you happen to be working with a recruiter, let's say that you wrote to the HR manager, by all means, please copy the recruiter. Always keep the recruiter in the loop. Okay, we can take some time out here for your thoughts or your questions about cover letters. Merle, do we have anything?
If you have questions, you can also unmute yourself.
I'm sorry?
Everybody can unmute themselves if they have a question, but right now there's no questions except that someone said something about the parts that are highlighted in yellow. I assume you didn't get to that yet, correct?
The parts that were highlighted in yellow showed up on the PowerPoint.
Not on ours.
Not on our version, but that's okay. I saw that Marge had her hand raised someplace.
Yes.
Marge?
Please, Gary, tell me what you mean by closure, your last point in the last slide.
Oh, good question. It's just your signature. It's a signature in what you say, primarily by closure, I mean, I look forward to meeting with you and other members of the organization to discuss the opportunity, and then your signature. Okay,
but you said to send that to the recruiter.
No, you send a copy to the recruiter. If you know who the HR manager is, and I'm assuming in this case that you've worked with a recruiter, you can send this letter to the HR manager, but you got to make sure that you keep the recruiter in the loop.
Okay, and finally, when you wrote Dear Judy, is it typical not to write Dear Ms. whatever Smith her last name was? Do you automatically jump into a first name when you don't know the person?
Yes, you do jump into a first name. I feel it's more personal. You wouldn't write Dear HR Manager. So no, you address the person by name if you can find out who it is. And sometimes people tell me, come on, you don't know. If you're working with a recruiter, the recruiter should be comfortable with telling you this, especially because you're keeping them in the loop. And you're saying, I want to present myself and I'm going to send you, obviously, a copy of this letter. So the recruiter should cooperate with you and tell you who that person is.
Okay, Rebecca Ehrlich has a question. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you not done, Marge?
No, I'm done. I said thank you. Yeah.
Oh, Rebecca Ehrlich.
Good questions, Marge. Thank you.
So I've always started my cover letter off by reading the job description, and then I have a small intro paragraph. but then after that, I have bullets explaining why I'm a good fit based on their qualifications that they want, and I put just bullets instead of a paragraph. Is that okay to do, or would it be better to break it down into paragraphs?
I feel that in the interest of keeping this short and concise, if you say right away in that first paragraph that you're applying for and you're very interested in this particular position, okay? Obviously, they know what the job requirements are, and you're in the process of putting your resume in. So really, it's better just to focus on the things that I've presented and not make it more voluminous, Rebecca. See what I'm saying? Because it really doesn't add anything. And with how busy everybody is today, I am very, very much on the side of focus and conciseness. What is it we're going to say in this letter that's in addition to the resume, in addition to what they already know about the job? Okay?
And if you don't know the name of who it's sending to, is it okay to write like hi and then the company name?
No, I would write not to the company name. I'd write to dear, let's say, dear HR manager, if you find no other way of doing that.
Okay.
If you can't get their name.
Okay.
But you can say that. It's not as good as if you find out the name. The way you find out the name is using LinkedIn. Look up the name of the company and who are the current and past employees. And you may also find this on their website, but if it's an HR manager, typically HR managers' names are not on websites. So you kill two birds with one stone. Do your networking, okay, to find out more about the company and say, hey, by the way, this would be super helpful to me if I knew who to address my cover letter to. It's not confidential, it's not secret. And everybody should be, if they're willing to talk to you, they'll be willing to give you that. And it makes a big difference. Again, the personal touch.
Okay,
Right.
we have two more questions.
Good.
Lisa asked, so does that mean no bullets?
I don't advocate bullets in cover letters. And the reason is, you can do that. That's resume structure. That's what we do in a resume, bullets. So again, what I try to get, this is a little subtle, but what I try to get away from is not sending the resume or anything that looks like it in the cover letter. The cover letter is there to personalize it as a letter.
Okay, and we have a question from Frank. Thoughts on a T-bar cover letter?
Oh boy. Based on what I just said, what do you think?
Probably not really in favor of it.
I'm sorry, say it again.
I said you're probably not really in.
If I had a cigar and a way to give it to you, I would give it to you. Right. It's too structured. The resume is already very, very structured, and the whole thing here with the networking in and talking to people and what you know about the company and your strong interest in this position and why, the T is not an environment to do that in.
Anyone else have a question?
Yeah, I have a comment. Nowadays, with everybody working remotely, I think snail mail is maybe too high of a risk that they won't get it or they'll get it very late.
That's possibly true. So double down. Send it by email as well as by snail mail.
But also part of the problem is you may not have the mailing address if you're not meeting them in person and you're meeting them remotely. So if I don't have a mailing address, you can't really double down.
Absolutely. But that's, if you make a personal connection, which I strongly, strongly advocate, whoever you're going to talk to, oh, by the way, where should I be mailing this letter? What's the address? Easy to get. Also easy to get off the company website. So you got to be a little bit on the personal side here, but that personal side means a lot. It really, really does. As I said before, people who do this and do it well, when there's a pile of resumes, I assure you, because you've spoken to people in the company, you're going to the top of the pile. And that's the whole thing of this, is to get recognized when you might be applying for a job where there are 50, 60, or 70 or more resumes, applicants. And people, this worked for me, obviously, more than the times that I'm just showing you in this PowerPoint, but it has also worked for the people that I have coached.
Okay, Dara, Dara is asking what the difference between a marketing CL and a paying CL.
A marketing, say again, please.
A marketing CL and a paying CL? I'm not sure.
Cover letter.
Oh.
Yeah, cover letter, fine. But what was the second one?
Pain.
Oh, a pain letter?
A
Am I
pain
supposed
cover
to
letter.
know what a pain letter is? If that means recognizing the particular challenges that the company's facing, especially in these days and these times, yeah, good point. When I talk about understanding, pardon me. When I talk about understanding what the company is facing, in the letter I mentioned that there were thousands of students, and you got to put these books out there and they have to be in time for the semesters. And in that particular case, the company just didn't know how to do that because they weren't organized in planning. But bringing out the pain, absolutely. Bringing out the pain means you understand what the company's challenges are. And that's beautiful. Be careful how you write it, of course. Be professional, be tactful. But yeah, the pain in this case was you had a lot of dissatisfied students because the books were not coming in time. And these kids with reading and learning disabilities, they need them when they need them. So we had to completely reorganize the whole production process of recording books, and that's what I joined them to do. Those are very good, pointed questions about all this. It helps to round it out. So thank you all for the thoughts and the questions. Anything else, Sharon?
Not that I see that you haven't already answered. Anyone want to raise their hand or unmute themselves with another question?
Charlie just asked, how about using FedEx versus US mail? I guess if you're sending it to someone personally.
You can. It comes in a bigger envelope, right? When it comes to the desk, it absolutely is not going to get missed. So, yeah, if you do it that way, put your letter in there, not fold it over. Leave it flat, 8.5 by 11. Yeah, absolutely.
One negative of one of those couriers is that very often, for security reasons, mailrooms scan them or open them first. So then it becomes less, personal. Oh, like someone already opened it, or it's not as pretty.
Well, not something you or I can control. But I think the letter mailed with a 49-cent stamp on it is really a good enough way to go.
That's how much it costs nowadays?
No,
It's either 49 cents or up to 50 cents.
I think it's more like 55, but just an observation. This is Amy Lazar. An observation
Yes, Amy, I see you.
for when I had mail at work, it went to a general mailbox. And since I didn't really expect mail, I hardly ever checked it. So I think doubling down in any case and sending it also by email covers your bases better, even during non-COVID times.
Yep. It's another little thought to give you some assurance that it's going to get to the desk and the person's going to read it. And in these times where job search is obviously very competitive, any little thing that you can do like this, in my mind, makes a difference. And I strongly encourage it.
Okay, I think we're good for now.
Okay? So we can go on then to slide 17, and we'll go to thank you letters. I think I posed the question here after an interview, do you write thank you letters? Well, I have never met anybody that didn't write a thank you letter. So the question is, what were the results? Did you get a call back for a second interview? Did you get a job offer? Did you get negative feedback or no feedback? The frustration for a lot of people, of course, is that they have some kind of an interview and they get no feedback or they get negative feedback. So those are obviously are the things that you want to prevent, the things to be avoided. Most of the people I'm talking to today don't get an offer after one interview. Typically, there's at least a second round. And so the thank you letter becomes, I think, even more important. That this also is well written, well crafted, and let me show you some examples. Next slide. So most client thank you letters thank the interview, but they don't summarize what was important in the interview. They don't explain that they understand the real challenges of the job. And they don't emphasize their value proposition that they could bring to the position to meet those challenges. So we'll look again at a next slide. How to send these. Again, it's email, snail mail, as we've already discussed. Next slide. And here's typical thank you letter content. And this is going to Nick Adams. And as before, I'll show you what I feel is the bare bones thank you letter. Nick, thanks very much for spending time with me regarding the Director of Materials position. I believe you'll see from our conversation that my experience and accomplishments in the drug industry are a good match for the job. I'm very interested in this opportunity and look forward to meeting you again to learn more about the responsibilities and how I can make a positive contribution as a member of your team. Really, it's not just more than saying thanks. I enjoyed speaking with you, and based on what we discussed, I'm interested in coming back. And you're writing that now to the hiring manager, in this example, with a CC to human resources and also to the recruiter if there is one. Now I'll show you the actual letter that I did write. And being a snail mail person, of course, I snail mailed it. So same format, date, my address, his name, his address. And since the other one was sort of an email version, this is Dear Nick. So thanks for taking time for our meeting and sharing information with me about the company and the supply management function. And this I added for substance. Your detailed description of the organizational and business issues being addressed provided me with a good understanding of the challenges facing the new Director of Materials Management. I am excited about the possibility of joining this pharma company, Pfizer's, because I want to build a long-term career with a company that's a leader in its marketplace, providing the first non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs for treatment of asthma. This was a very, very big thing at the time because most of these treatments contain cortisone, and cortisone has side effects, and this company came up with an effective drug against asthma that was not steroidal. So a position with the company would offer me the opportunity to improve materials management performance in ways that I have done in previous drug companies, which had a dynamic impact on sales and profits. So I'm showing the connection now, just in one sentence. between what they need, what they're looking for, and my background, which spells out, of course, in the resume. I believe that my background and achievements are an exceptionally strong match for your needs. Next slide. Specifically, our discussion made it clear that planning and purchasing, the areas in which I am professionally certified and have the greatest depth of experience, are exactly the ones especially in need of improvement. And another short paragraph, as you know, I have successfully increased customer service levels and reduced purchasing costs throughout my career. Further, my consulting experience has developed my ability to implement new systems, policies, and procedures that will improve efficiency in managing these functions. Next slide. I'm eager to learn, as everybody usually says, closing paragraph, eager to learn more about the improvements that can be made to strengthen the materials management function. And I'm looking forward to getting together with you and other members of the Phisons organization to continue our discussion. Now, when you interview, and I know you all have had this experience, it's the human resources and the hiring manager, and sometimes you meet with other members of the hiring manager's team. And you're writing a letter here to the hiring manager, and the good thing to do is to copy the others that you have met. When you interview with them, get their business cards so you can make sure that they're copied on this thank you letter. It gives them recognition, and it shows that they were important to you in the meeting. Also, there's some detail here. If you go back a couple of slides that are in yellow,
We don't,
something that I do during interviews, I always asked if it was okay to take notes. And I was never refused doing that. So I had my 8.5 by 11 folio pad on a desk or in my lap, and I was taking notes so that when I wrote the thank you letter, I could make sure that I'm connecting with the most important points that the hiring manager was talking about, sharing with me what the problems are, what the opportunities are, what the responsibilities are, and so on and so forth. So I always made my letters very, very targeted to what I really understood as most important challenges and the most important issues. Okay, and this is a summary of your content for a good thank you letter. It's the date, the address, just the format that I've shown. Name and address of the recipient. The salutation is the greeting. That's Dear Nick. Next slide. Thanks for meeting with you and other members of the organization. Why you're interested in the position. Focusing on the key points discussed. How your background and experience makes you a great fit. And the closure, of course, is your signature and the copies to everyone that was involved in the process. Okay, time out for some thoughts and comments about thank you letters.
I am looking. I have a question for you, Gary.
Sure, Sharon.
Do you think that it's nicer to, instead of CCing the other people that were on the interview, that they should get their own email thanking them?
Yes, and the truth is that I have done that. But there's also been, if it's 6, 7, or 8 people, and I've been interviewed by that many people, and I'm sure many of you have too, then you're into writing 6 or 7 or 8 different letters. And it becomes a little cumbersome. If there were only 1 or 2 others, I would do it. And the one big caveat I have for you in this is make it very short. I'm glad to have met you. Thank you for sharing information with me. about the organization and what you see as the most important things that need to be done. This is a one paragrapher. You don't include all the stuff of the hiring manager, but it is a nice touch and it is a nice recognition. But if you met 6 or 7 or 8 different people, the problem is what you're going to say to each one, remembering what everybody said, and making sure that the letter that you write to them doesn't have pretty much the same content that you sent to everybody else, because they're going to talk. And they're going to say, oh, I got a letter from Gary. Well, what did it say? Oh, you know, I got the same letter from Gary, and it said exactly the same thing. So you can get away from all that by sharing with them what you write to the hiring manager, which will be relevant to them, and you're recognizing that you spent time with them. So that's a good question. If it's only 1 or 2 other people and you remember things that were distinctly important or different, that's a nice touch. And by email, not by snail mail. But as I say, if it's a really large group, just put them as copy recipients.
But sometimes it could be a trick. Sometimes they want to see, is this guy gonna, or a gal gonna take the time to send it to everyone? And I've been in the position of hiring, just not to, you know, there's no right or wrong here, just different styles.
Right.
When I interviewed people, if they didn't send me a letter, I don't care if there was 12 people in the room, I thought that was wrong. They have the time to at least send me thank you. I also don't think that they share with each other. If it's a place where where there's 8 people interviewed you or 6 people, they're not going to say, what did he say in your letter? What did he, I think, you know, I think there's no wrong or right here, but that's my view. You should send it, in my mind, to everybody. But again, there's lots of different.
This is a judgment call, and a lot of this should come from your feeling about what went on when you were meeting all these other people. You know, sometimes it's real perfunctory and it's not that interesting, and it was just, hi, Gary, Nick just wanted me to meet you. I would be your potential colleague in quality assurance, and so on and so forth. And that I would put on the list of thank yous to the boss. But if something was discussed that was important, to your point, Sharon, I would send a separate letter, even if it's 2 or 3 sentences saying, you know, I was particularly interested in our conversation and the point that you made about such and such, and I've had that kind of experience myself, so I'm really interested if we work together to work on that problem together. That kind of hits the nail on the head. And it's short. It's short.
So we have another question from Peter Larson. How do you get everyone's email if the recruiter is controlling the process?
Well,
networking, or is there a better way?
Well, this is a thank you letter. So you had an interview, and obviously anybody that you interview with, most people today have business cards. So that's when you're getting it.
Okay, and Dara has a great question. Please explain the importance of the marketing cover letter to a senior level when there is no job posted at the current time.
Oh boy. That is a horse of a different color. That's a different deal. And I didn't cover that in the concept and the scope of this presentation. This was targeted toward posted job opportunities. But you've given me an idea, because I'm looking for other ideas for other presentations. And a lot of the elements which are in the cover letter would be in the marketing letter. Go back and take a look at it and you'll see that. Except it would be broader. It wouldn't be about a particular position, but it can be, you know, I'm a supply chain management executive. These are the things I've done. I've done it in your industries. I have researched your company, and I think we have a great alignment here between my experience and my accomplishments meeting your challenges. That would be more of the marketing letter, okay? But wouldn't be very, very different from the cover letter written here. But that deserves separate attention.
Hi, Gary. This is Nancy Wall. I have a quick question. Actually, I have a few questions for you.
Okay.
But before I ask you the question, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your actual cover letter and thank you letters. I think it's very well written, and this is something that I will definitely consider and personalize my letters. So in terms of results, how soon did you get a response when you sent out this thank you letter?
It was very quick. They needed somebody to fill the role. There was a person in-house who was not, in their mind, fulfilling the role. And as it turned out, I met that person as one of the several other people that I interviewed with,
Mhm.
and he already knew that he was going to be replaced. And what turned out was he reported to me.
Okay.
So that
Wow.
was, you know, a personal situation that needed to be handled well, and happened to be a very good person. And he and I actually hit it off during the interview. So it was easy to write him, you know, a thank you note. His name was Jim. And I said really that we have a lot of similar background and experience, and I look forward to learning, you know, the details about what's going on in the operation from you and our working together.
Okay. Wow.
That was one that I made sure to send personally, because sensitive situation, he was being demoted, but I found out after talking to him, he really didn't care, and he wasn't depressed about that.
Okay. And here's a similar question. So for all the countless cover letters and thank you letters that you've sent out, what is the percentage of responses that you did receive?
From people who were not the hiring manager, sometimes a note or two, sometimes none. I really didn't expect responses. And from the hiring manager in this case, within 3 or 4 days, I had a telephone call from HR saying, we're going to make you an offer. And I know
okay.
if you compare that to what's going on in the marketplace these days, where people sometimes are not waiting days, but they're waiting weeks for responses. That was a different time, and I think that I was fortunate. So then the question usually comes up, if you're really interested in the opportunity, what process do you use for follow-up?
That was my next question.
It was your next question? Okay.
Yeah, you beat me to it. So if you don't get a response, what would be your next step to get their attention?
All right, I'm very into this.
Not only to get their attention, but just to get a response.
Yeah, I'm very interested in this, and I'm very into this, so I'm glad we're discussing it.
Mhm.
Here's what I did. I waited 3 or 4 days. First, I'd go back to, let's say, human resources, because they're usually in the middle of this and they're coordinating it.
Okay.
And I'd go with a little email. If I didn't get a response to that, maybe 2-3 business days later, I'd do a voice, try to call the person, and leave a voicemail. And these days, with instant messaging, I'd use that too. So here's the strategy. This is what I think about this. People are always worried when they follow up that they're becoming a nag. And a nag turns people off. So the way you do this is you space it a couple of 2-3 days, and you use a different form of communication. One time it's email, the next time it's a telephone, the third time it's an IM. And by doing it that way, you're just showing your interest and you're not hammering somebody. And then
Does that show desperation though?
I'm sorry?
Does it show desperation?
No, it doesn't. And that's the other thing. I'm glad you raised that point, Nancy.
Okay.
it doesn't show desperation. It shows keen interest. And when you do these little writings and these little voicemails, you know, what you talk about is, gee, I'm really excited about this position. I'm sure you can understand my enthusiasm, so I was so looking forward to hearing back from you soon. You know, sign Nancy. If you do that and you emphasize your enthusiasm and that you're really lit up about this opportunity, then, and you use the different forms of communication, it looks a hell of a lot less like desperation or nagging.
Okay.
After all, you know, the business world today, and I've seen this change over the years, I was actually in the corporate workplace for 49 years.
Wow.
From when I graduated from college to retiring after the last job. So I've seen a lot of transition within the operational inner workings of corporations. And today, especially with all the new technology, people are moving like systems at warp speed. People do 2 and 3 times the amount or maybe more of communications every day, and it's now considered normal. And it's also, being human, you know, people get distracted, people forget. So you have to be willing to keep at it. And if you do it the ways that I'm suggesting, these things are not turnoffs. These things show interest.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you, Gary. I really appreciate your insights.
You're very welcome. And thanks for all the questions. They were great.
Okay, we're gonna hold the next set of questions.
Yes.
We'll still have time for the questions, so don't anybody go anywhere. But if you look down now into the chat box, there is a link to our evaluation form. We're gonna take 3 minutes. Please either cut and paste the link or click on the link, whatever works for you. Go straight to our evaluation form. It is crucial that you don't just check off the boxes. Let us know what you liked about this presentation. Let us know what could be different about this presentation. And then please, please, please let us know what other presentations you're looking to do. This presentation topic came up numerous times in the chat box the last time in evaluations previously, and that's why we found someone to talk about it. So I'm gonna watch the clock, Sharon, 3 minutes, and then we'll get back to Gary and any more questions you have. So don't go anywhere. Anybody having problems getting to the link, just let me know.
Meryl, I'm in the link, but I can't select any of the selections.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Is anyone else having that problem?
I can't click on any of the radio buttons.
Oh, I'm not having a problem. Can you hear me, Meryl?
Yeah, you were able to do it?
Yeah, I wonder
Okay.
what happened here. Maybe close it and try it again? Maybe
Oh,
it's the
got it. So I closed it and now it works.
Made me nervous. I thought I did something wrong.
Okay. Thanks, Meryl and Sharon.
gonna give it another minute and a half.
Earl, I have just a couple more slides, just this conclusion.
Sure,
And,
well,
then if there's enough time, we can open the floor for a few more questions about anything within resume, LinkedIn profile, ATSs, and stuff that I specialize in.
right. Let's give them another, how much time do we have, Sharon?
We
How
have
are we-
10 seconds.
All right, then I will share the screen again.
5, 4.
Such pressure.
If you haven't finished it, then go back and finish it afterwards.
Okay.
Figure out how to put a time clock down on the screen, on the Zoom screen, so we all can see that, right?
I definitely need to come up with some music, like Jeopardy music while we're doing this.
Oh, right, music would help.
Okay. Did you put something up there, Meryl?
I shared the screen. Everyone see it?
Yes,
The slides? Okay.
that's my next slide. So in summary, I believe if you follow these recommendations, you're going to present yourself as very, very professional and businesslike in ways that will enhance your candidacy, and certainly that will help you be much more successful in your job search. And this is my contact information if anybody would like to get in touch with me to pursue some personal support. These are the things that I specialize in. Resume, LinkedIn profile, cover and thank you letter certainly, but the last one, in working with people recently, especially people who are further along in their career, we talk about and we focus on what your job search plan and strategy is. Ways of defining what you're about, what you have to offer, what your transferable skills are, to give you the opportunity of reaching out to other kinds of companies that you previously have not worked for. And just to share this, after years and years in pharmaceutical and consumer products, my last 3 companies were none of the above. One was a glass manufacturer making laboratory ware for use in the pharma industry and laboratories. The second one was this one in the cover letter, which was about digital recording of books being read by people who know the material and reading it onto CDs. And the last company I worked for was a company that provided support by taking the entire IT operation out of a company and putting it into one of their data centers. So it was a data center service support operation, which, because of economies of scale, saved that company by moving it in money and also made money for the company that I was working with. So what I have done successfully when I saw that the industries that I was working in weren't hiring, I engineered my job search plan and strategy to make it possible for me to get into other industries. And that's how I was able to continue to be successful. That became very important, especially when pharma and consumer product companies were constantly downsizing. So I do specialize in helping people with that. Ellen, I see you up.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm sorry that I had to pause and leave your presentation to attend a work call, so I just came back. So there's a
Okay.
big chunk of your presentation that I missed, unfortunately. I'll check with Meryl to see if I can access the recording.
Okay.
Everyone will be able to access the recording through our YouTube channel, and if I can find the link, I'll post that right now in the chat, since I'm not sharing my screen anymore.
Thank you. Gary, may I ask a question?
Yes.
And this goes back to what you said in the very beginning of your presentation, and that the cover letter is an underutilized job search tool.
Right.
And I'm a fan of them. I spend a lot of time on them, and hopefully write one that is compelling in a job search situation that, you know, adds additional information than what's on the resume. And yet I have had people look me straight in the eyes and said, I will never read a cover letter. Or I had one person say, I've read one cover letter in the last 10 years. And I don't know if it's generational. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm glad you asked. At the Professional Services Group of Mercer County, where I'm a member of the executive committee, several months ago, as one of our Friday morning programs, we brought a team of HR experts, people who are HR professionals, in. They sat in front of a group of 80 people, four people, four stools, and the audience just asked questions. And one of the questions was about cover letters, and each one responded. And one of them responded exactly what you said. I never read cover letters. I don't read cover letters. And she went on to say that over the years, she's been involved in placement of probably over 1,000 people. And I began to get the feeling that whatever level of recruiting she was doing, it was more hard-nosed, boiled down to what's in the resume to see if that person is a match for the job through the ATS system. But there are those out there that don't. There are those that don't, but they are not the majority.
Okay.
Because the others said that they do read cover letters. They scan them very quickly, and they're looking to see whether or not the things in there that they're reading are not stuff that's in the resume. Because that cover letter gives you a chance to speak much more about your person and speak much more about and let them know the subjective reasons why you're interested in the company, and just mention very, very briefly how your background matches the position. And of course, the networking elements. But there are HR people who won't read them. Absolutely right.
Okay.
So Ellen, it's interesting, at least 15 years ago, we did a similar program. We had 6 HR panelists up in front of everybody, and someone asked about the cover letter. And out of the 6 presenters, 3 said, I never read cover letters or thank you notes. And 3 said, absolutely, they're very important. And this was like 10 or 15 years ago. So as Gary, I would add to what Gary said, absolutely, if they're not going to read it, they're not going to read it. But just in case they want one, you might as well send it. If they read it, great. And if they don't read it, okay, that's fine. But you should always err on the side of sending it. But we had the same reaction. That hasn't changed, 10, 15 years ago from a bunch of HR people.
Okay.
Look,
And those were HR people. I suspect if it's the hiring manager, you might get a higher percentage of those who do read them.
That might be true, Howard. You're right.
So,
yeah, and I'm working right now with a young man who just graduated college. And he had internship experience and he had summer jobs. And when I said to him, I'm going to help you write a cover letter, he said, Gary, everything about me is in my resume. What do I have to write a cover letter for? Then we talked about this thing that I mentioned earlier that you all know about called value proposition. And you also hear people talking about brand. And I found out in talking with Vin that his specialty is understanding technology and communicating it in very, very simple, highly effective terms to users so that they can use it more easily, more comfortably, and more effectively. And I said, bingo. That's what you're going to put in your cover letter. That's your plus, and that's the thing that probably differentiates you from a lot of the other techies. And this is what we want to say. So even though he'll be going in for an entry-level job, I still believe, as Merle was saying, send the letter in. It doesn't hurt you. It can only help you.
Thank you.
so can I just ask, Gary, and a couple of us wrote in the chat, things are so different with the current environment.
We lost you.
Wait, did we mute her by mistake?
I didn't.
Someone.
Marge, you muted yourself.
Okay, my question is, in this COVID-19 environment, and I just had a Zoom interview, since there are no business cards to collect, you're not in person, do you ask the people at the interview for their email address? Just ask them verbally so that
Sure.
you can communicate?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Hey, I'd like to keep in touch with you. I'd like to send you a thank you note. Please give me your email address. Sure,
Okay, thank you.
sure.
So I'll jump in and say something again. I think that another way to do it, if you're uncomfortable with writing the cover letter, you really should write a cover letter. Why don't you just write a short one? Because what I've been told by hiring managers and by different HR people is as long as it's really easy to read and it's really fast, they will read it. So that could be your alternative. If you want to write one and aren't sure, do a shorter one, something very brief.
Well, I understand that, Sharon, but didn't Gary just a few moments ago say you don't do the plain and simple short one? You have to do the whole, big one.
I'm talking about, well, there's different views of what to do, but I'm talking about if you don't want to say, if you are unsure that they want to do a cover letter, or if you, Barry, don't like doing cover letters, I'm saying, go ahead and do it anyway, just do a shorter one. In my mind, I think people, if there are, I believe in bullet points, I mean, just different view. If people are going to read it, if it's shorter, if it's a big, long letter, a lot of times they don't have time and don't want to. I don't know if Dawn wants to jump in here. She's an HR person. What are your thoughts, Dawn? If she's still on, or?
Yeah, she's still on. Just
I'm here. Yeah, I just unmuted myself. So I just put something in the chat. So I will always read a cover letter. I don't get that many anymore because people don't do them. But to me, it shows effort. And as opposed to just applying for a job one after the other, it shows they're interested in that specific job. And I will read it, and sometimes there's something that will make me say, okay, I'll talk to this candidate, where if I just received the resume, I might have not just spoken to the candidate.
Great. See, right there is all, that's all the reason I need to write a cover letter.
Yeah, here's the thing with this. And I'll give you an approach to what I think of as good strategy. I guess it's the less is more thing. The more work you're willing to do with fewer companies to go through these steps that I'm talking about, the higher quality your presentation, the more likely you are to get recognized, the more likely you are to get an interview. The shotgun approach doesn't usually work. We know of people who said they sent out 50, 60, or 70 resumes. They didn't write any cover letters. And no matter how qualified they were, they didn't get recognized. So that's the thing that I encourage people to do. Be more selective about the companies and the opportunities that you choose. There's a whole other issue here of how you develop a master resume and strengthen it to meet the requirements that are in there in the applicant tracking system. That's another one of the major steps here. It's something I call master resume, and how you enhance it and then use a system that's available commercially to match your requirements to the job, and gives you a score and gives you a list of the things where you did match and where you didn't match. So you have an opportunity to go back and tweak your resume and customize it to increase your score. That's on the master resume and ATS side. But all these things take time. And if you're trying to do this with 30 companies, I think you'll be crazy in a couple of weeks or sooner. If you're trying to do it with 7 or 8 or 10 companies that you've selected because it's reasonable commute, you have a good match in the industry background, and it's the kind of position that you really are looking for, and so on and so forth, your odds of being more successful, I feel, are more in the quality and the direct approach.
Oh, boy.
And where cover letters are concerned, I wanted to mention this too. The higher you go up in the job level, when you get to be a senior manager or a director, or I have worked with vice presidents, people who report to C-level positions, the letter and the contents of the letter becomes as important as the resume, the higher the job level.
And anyone else have a question? Did we lose Meryl?
No, I'm still here. I'm just writing down the name of the next program so I can let everyone know about it.
Oh, okay. So the YouTube that Meryl sent a link for the YouTube, it's not up yet. Give us a couple of days.
For today's program, right, but all the other previous programs are up there.
Well, yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right, so before we lose everybody else, because we've already lost about 10 people, if you didn't complete the evaluation, then go back and finish it, and as much detail as possible would be terrific. I would love to thank Gary. Everybody who speaks for us volunteers their time, so let's give Gary a virtual applause. We got past the technical issues. The presentation was great. I do have the PowerPoint now, so if people request it from me, from Sharon, we will be able to share that with you. And as well, once you watch the video, you'll see the PowerPoint in the video. For those of you who want to know the coming attractions, a lot of people didn't hear me last time. We are now on an every other week schedule. Our next program is Thursday, August 6th. And I'm sure a lot of you people know the name of our speaker, who's Janelle Rosino. She has spoken for us before. She has spoken other places. She is one of the most helpful people I know. And, you know, people have, as Matt, one of the people who just landed, one of my clients, got a lot of help from her in terms of how to position himself because it was her field of expertise. She's coming back to talk to us. The title of the presentation is If You Don't Have Focus, You Don't Have Game. So you should be getting the email about this at 12:05 today because that's when I have it scheduled. And all the information, click on it, get the link, get on the program in 2 weeks. For those of you who want a little bit more hand-holding, a little more one-on-one, as Sharon and I have said in the past, we are a very low-cost service. And if you want to know more information about how Sharon and I may be able to help you on a personal level, then reach out to me, reach out to Sharon by email, and we will get back to you, explain our services, and hopefully help you until you call us and tell us we've made it. So until then, I hope that a lot of you are not on the call in 2 weeks because you've all landed jobs. But if you haven't, then join us in 2 weeks from now. And I'm promising you it'll be a great presentation. And until then, just stay safe and healthy. Sharon, anything you'd like to add?
Nope. Thanks so much, Gary. That was great. Loved it. And thanks for sharing it with our community. And,
Very welcome.
you know, if you want, anybody wants our help one-on-one, it's $75 and under that's it. One-time fee. Just helps us pay the rent. In some cases, depending where you live, it's even less. Okay, so thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day and stay well.
Everyone, thank you so
So
much.
everyone.
Careful and stay well. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Gary.
Okay, welcome. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.